Hi, welcome to another episode of Recover Loud. I'm your host, Mike Paddleford, and I recover loud. This show first started with the hopes that we could help end the stigma of substance use disorder and try to help to save some lives.
Let's go. I'm on a journey to discover the truth. Living life in recovery is lovely. You got the power in you. Surround yourself with positive energy. Judges hitting people with provocative penalties. Need to make a change. Advocate to change the laws. Screw the people that it's not insane. When you stand behind a cause, I'm here to speak about the pain. Recover loud to normalize the disease that's been killing all my friends and my family. The time is now to let it all go and recover loud. The benefit is healthy people, family and friends that never have to overdose ever again, never have to plead out to a lesser offense. I'm proud to say that I recover loud. I never thought I could, but I'm so proud that I discovered how to live my life again, controlling my own destiny. I needed recovery, I still need it desperately. Addiction never defined my identity. I recover loud, here to tell my own story. I recover proud, save a life of like 40. I recover loud, yeah, I recover loud. I recover loud, yeah, I recover loud. I recover loud, here to tell my own story. I recover proud, save a life of like 40. I recover loud, yeah, I recover loud. I recover loud, yeah, I recover loud. I recover loud. I recover loud. I recover loud. I recover loud.
Hi, and welcome to another episode of Recover Loud. I'm your host, Mike Paddleford, and I recover loud. Today's guest is Mackenzie Kelley from Bangor. Mackenzie, welcome. Thanks for sharing your story with us today. Where did you grow up?
Yep. I actually grew up in Bangor, Maine. And I don't know, I come from a really good family, but my parents weren't really around, so it was mostly just me trying to fit in, I guess, and I didn't really know how or what that looked like. So that's actually how I got into drugs.
What age would you say you first used a substance, whether it was alcohol or marijuana?
Yeah, I was 12 when I first started smoking pot.
Yeah. Was that a regular thing for you, or was that just it happened and then?
No, I used once, and then when I was 15, I started smoking regularly.
And how easy was it for you to do that?
I mean, it was just normal.
Yeah.
All of my friends smoked pot. Everybody I hung out with was, I was a freshman, they were all seniors, and then, we partied on the weekends or whatever, and I had people who were older than 21 that were, buying us alcohol and stuff, so.
Yeah. And how long did it take before that progressed into something that was a little more serious?
By the time I was 17, I was addicted to Oxycontin. All my friends were using opiates, and, I'd see them, nodding out on the couch, and I'd be like, what is wrong with you? That just looks freaking terrible.
Right.
And I'd kind of gotten in some trouble at high school because I was skipping school and smoking weed. So my parents actually sent me to a different high school, and like I said, I didn't know how to fit in. And I was in vocational school, so I remember having this crazy crush on this guy, and he did pills, and that was I guess kind of my way in. I felt like the only way he would like me was if I did kind of what he did.
What else did you get from doing that? I mean, did that relationship last?
To be honest with you, I had started stealing money from my father's business, and so my parents knew that something was going on, but they didn't exactly know what it was. And I thought I was going on vacation, but during that time it was around the year 2000, and these child programs were kind of coming into swing, I guess, and my parents sent me to like a lockdown facility in Jamaica. I thought I was going on vacation. So that put the kibosh to our relationship pretty quick.
Yeah.
You know.
So how old were you there?
I was 17.
17. And how long did that program last?
I was there 11 months. I didn't actually graduate the program. I signed out 3 months after my 18th birthday. But once you turn 18, you can sign out. But I had kind of grown this relationship with my parents, and I had like craved this acceptance from them for a really long time, like this validation that I just never got. And I was really hoping, you know, their version of my success in the program would kind of change that relationship. So I stayed. And when I got out, I was like, what I call is programized, right? We were almost brainwashed into feeling or thinking certain things. So when I got out, it was fear that kind of drove me, that kept me straight, for a lack of a better way to put it.
Right.
You know.
And how long did you stay
Clean?
Yeah.
Well, off of opiates, it was about 5 years. But within 6 months. No, I'm just kidding. Within a couple weeks, I was smoking pot again.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. So a lot of people talk about marijuana being a gateway. Do you see it as such for your recovery?
I don't smoke pot anymore. Do I see it as a gateway? Not necessarily.
Okay.
For me, I think when I was a kid, it was cigarettes.
Yeah.
To be honest.
Yeah, I mean, once we find that we can get a benefit from something,
Mm-hmm.
you know, then that desire or willingness to try something
Yep.
is there, you know. So what happened to get you to start using again after all that?
To be honest, my best friend was dating a cop. And we had previous discussions about how much Oxycontin was worth. And this old man had died, and this woman asked my friend's boyfriend to get rid of the pills. And he was like, well, do you want a receipt for that? And she said, no. So he took all the pills, pretended to flush them down the toilet, and then he knew nobody else but me. And I'd been clean for so long that I didn't know what the hell to do with them.
Right.
You know what I mean? But I had this one guy that would, probably buy them. So that's kind of how it started. And I sold him like the 80s and 40s, but I kept the 20s for myself. And, it's kind of all downhill from there.
Yeah, and honestly, that's how my addiction started too. I was getting a prescription myself for herniated discs, but I didn't take any of them. I sold everything I got for like the first 4 years. And that money was my first addiction, the power, people wanting what I had, and, I kind of got off on the idea that I could keep some people away and allow other people in, and just force them to want to be my friend, and then eventually a doctor cut me off, and I had to start sharing. Every time I sold one, I did one. And so I could pass a urine test. And it didn't take long on 40 milligram Oxycontin to get addicted. So how long were you able to keep up that lifestyle?
That started it all over again. And I started buying pills for personal use. And then before you know it, I had connections, right? So I was buying them for really cheap and selling them. So that's how I supported my habit for about, probably about 4 or 5 years. Yeah. And, it's this, for me, it was a really quick progression, I guess, because it was basically unlimited access for really cheap. And like you said, I didn't really feel like I had any power or control when I was a child. So I really think I kind of craved that. And just feeling like I had some importance, even though it wasn't a negative aspect.
Right. Right. And I mean, we don't know that it's negative. It's something that we've always wanted, growing up, that acceptance. And you mentioned when you went into that program, you were, hoping the acceptance from your parents. So it's all, we grow up wanting that. And when we don't have it, we find a way to get it. So finding healthy ways to find that and feel that, is really what keeps us, on the path to recovery later on. Because that doesn't go away. We just have to find another way to fill that. So, how about legal trouble? How did that?
Yep, I've been in a lot of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I say 4 or 5 years of that whole situation with the oxys. I actually got busted with a very large amount of them when I was 27, and I'd never spent a day in jail. I'd never been in trouble for anything. So they actually gave me an 8-year sentence to serve. And so I went away for 2 years, and I didn't change one thing. At first, prison basically just gave me some more connections for when I got out. And at the time, there really was no, what they call now, re-entry. I came from a good family, so, you have somewhere to go, they have money, whatever. I didn't get any services, not one, when I got let out.
And what year was that?
That was in 2012.
Yeah. Yeah. See, I was in prison back in 1996. I got out, and same thing. There was nothing offered. They gave a $50 check, I think it was, and a bus ticket if I needed it, and sent me on my way. I had to report for probation, but even that wasn't offering me something. It was just reporting to the man. Somebody telling me what I couldn't do. And when I got out of prison, I tried hard to stay on the right path. And then once I got those prescriptions for oxys, it was all those things come back to me. An easy way to make money. I knew people were going to buy them, and it just made it was accessible, and easy. The prescriptions I was getting, you mentioned different sizes and keeping the lower dose. I did the same thing. I was getting Oxy 40s, Oxy 20s, Oxy 15s, all each month, so I could do some, sell the rest. And, eventually I sold less and less, did more and more, and then I started buying them, and I just keep buying more, and then I shared with my wife, and then we bought twice as much. And that whole life, 20 years, that lasted before it, finally came crashing in. And so at some point you decided that you were done with all of that, and you've been staying away from it for how long now?
I've been clean for 5 years.
5 years.
But to be honest with you, that first prison bid didn't do it for me.
No.
I went on the run from probation for 5 years, and it went from oxys to heroin.
Yes.
And I was just a hot mess for years, because it became opiates and then crack, and it was just, I didn't leave the house. And like I said, I was on the run. I'd go and meet my guy, and I was in the trunk. You know what I mean? Like, just some real shady stuff that I did just to keep up my drug habit and to make money, right?
Yeah.
So it just so happened that I had these like feelings of like real hopelessness, and I really wanted to die, to be honest with you. It just got to that point where I did not care about my life. I didn't want to be around. I didn't have the guts to actually kill myself, so it was like killing myself slowly, right? So I got picked up and I got a 7-year sentence for drugs. And the first year, I was just really angry. Just angry at the world, myself, my family, the girl who called the cops on me.
Right.
I thought of all the ways I was going to burn her house down.
Because it's her fault.
Right, of course. It wasn't my fault.
Right.
It wasn't my fault at all.
Right.
And then after that first year, I was like, all right, I got to let this go, And about 3 years into my bid, I started taking what's called inside out classes, which are people who are inside incarcerated that actually go to school with outside students. And at the time, we were actually working with a program through MIT. And so there were MIT and Harvard students on the outside, and women and men who were incarcerated, so in Wyndham and in Charleston. And we had this professor, Lee Perlman. He was amazing. I still work with him. Anyways, we had this day, right, where we had stayed over late at the end of class, and this guy was talking from Charleston, was talking about a murder he had committed. And it was like a restorative justice circle, kind of. And there was another woman in the class whom her mother had actually been brutally raped by somebody who had been let out on parole. And she actually had a huge part in getting parole kind of rescinded in the state of Pennsylvania. And at that moment in time, she said the worst possible choice she could have made. Because at the time she was like, she was very bitter, she wanted revenge, etc., etc. So Lee says, okay, and he says the woman's name, and he says a man's name, and he says, pretend like she is the son of your victim. What would you say to her? And he just starts crying. And he was like, I'm sorry, I'm just so sorry. And of course I'm on the Zoom screen and I start crying. Yeah. And Lee, after, the whole exchange, he says to me, he's like, I see you over there. He's like, why are you crying? And I said, I know I don't have a violent crime and it may not be, that severe, but at the same time, I've done irreparable harm to the people that I care about. And really it's about me just wanting that forgiveness from them. And so we had a short, a brief conversation, and I get out of class and I immediately call my mother and I was like, I'm so sorry for what I've put you through. This is just time for me, but it's time that I'm taking away from you, because when you're incarcerated, your family is incarcerated with you. Yeah. And she said, Mackenzie, we've already forgiven you. You just need to forgive yourself. And I said, I don't know how to do that, and I really didn't. I had no clue. And it just kind of started the journey from there, is how can I possibly forgive myself for something that I've done? And it was just a really learning, growing process of trying to figure out what that looked like for me. Yeah. So that's kind of where my journey started, of wanting to change my life.
And how long have you been out now?
I've been out a year. I was in for probably 2 years after that, and I got out, and I had every drive to stay clean, which I have. But to be honest with you, incarceration is traumatic in itself, and re-entry from prison is also traumatic in itself. Because
How so?
those 5 years that I was in, it just slapped me right in the face as soon as I got out. And I didn't know how to live sober and not incarcerated.
Right.
You know,
Right.
and my parents didn't understand what that felt
Right.
like. You know, so I had support, but in my reentry, I didn't have much of a support, and I didn't know how to live. So.
Yeah. And what did it take for you to figure that out?
To be honest with you, I went to Maine Prisoner Reentry Network weekly meeting, and I'd been actually going to them a year prior to my release from prison. And it just took somebody saying, you know, what's going on with you? How are you doing? And I got real vulnerable, and I started crying. And I was like, I feel so alone. Like, nobody understands what I'm going through. And that was real. That was raw. And all of a sudden, all these people started, you know, kind of coming to my side and, you know, cheering me on and saying, you know, if you need support in any way, I've got you.
Nice.
And really, it's just those moments that seem maybe small to other people, but were just huge to me.
Oh yeah, yeah.
You know.
And you know, it's those small moments that really, the important ones we grab onto, keep us going. You
Yep.
know, and it feels good because I mean, I know in my case, there's lots of moments I never imagined I'd get to. You know, reunifying with my kids, having my kids support me and accept me and forgive me. You know, was huge because those were the people that I hurt in my addiction. You know, my daughter was 16 before she ever met a sober version of me, and my boys. My oldest son had already moved out. My middle son was living with family in Massachusetts, you know, and I didn't know it, but he was feeling abandoned for 4 years when I thought I was doing him a favor, you know. So getting all of that stuff back, you know, just the little things that built up to that moment, you know, really kept me going. And then, you know, the ultimate payoff once I got them, you know, to love me again, you know.
I actually started working as a recovery coach, and now I'm the recovery coach coordinator for Kennebec County.
Nice.
So I actually have other recovery coaches underneath me, and we go into the jails, and and we coach people who are still incarcerated, which is huge, right?
Yeah.
I can actually go into a jail and not leave on bail conditions.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think, you know, jail gives them an opportunity. You know, for me, it gave me a lot of opportunity to think about my life. But, you know, even just going to 12-step meetings inside jail didn't do a lot for me when I got out. You know, but, you know, now that we can get in there, talk to people, give them that support, that encouragement, the guidance, the reentry programs that are there for people now, they can come out, they can get into a, you know, stable housing situation, and have a supportive, loving community, really, to help guide them, you know. So that's some pretty important work.
For me, the opposite of addiction is connection.
Absolutely.
Right? And in order for me to feel like I belong, I need to connect with other people who feel the same, or, you know, who understand exactly what it is. And when I couldn't rub together 2 days, my 5 years is monumental, right?
Absolutely.
And I always make sure I tell people, listen, you have a month, you have a week. That's huge.
Oh, yeah.
You know? Doesn't matter how long, if you have the drive to do that and you want to change your life, that's all that matters.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter how much time you've been in recovery.
Absolutely. You know, I remember my first day counting hours, and, you know, I was on Facebook early on, you know, 6 hours, 8 hours, 17 hours, and people are, you know, encouraging me, and it felt good. And then I was sitting back in the corner of my bedroom planning my first relapse, you know. You know, it was kind of crazy because I was doing it alone. You know, I had people who were supporting me, but I wasn't being honest. You know, I was just sitting in my room, you know. So getting connected with the community outside, having support that, you know, I could really feel, you know, is pretty important. And growing up, you know, it was connection. We saw it, and we got connected to a community of people, you know. But what that did was disconnected us from the people we really wanted to be connected with. our family and stuff like that. So, congratulations on being out and staying in recovery for 5 years, for all the work that you're doing. It's good stuff.
Yeah, thank you so much. I appreciate
no problem. You also have a podcast. You want to talk about that for a minute real quick?
Yeah, we actually run on WMPG and WERU. I run, me and another woman, Linda Doloff, we run Reentry Sisters, and it's a program for women who are returning to the community. We offer them services, get them connected, to somebody who understands about getting out. And her and I actually do a podcast. It's called Justice Radio. We're one of, two of 6 other people who run the show. It runs on Sundays at noon. You can actually listen to it on WMPG radio, and it's also on Spotify, iHeartRadio, whole lots of other things.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
It's awesome. We'll keep it up.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thanks for sharing
Yeah, I
all
appreciate
of that.
it.
Recover Loud, everyone.
Let's go. I'm on a journey to discover the truth. Living life in recovery is lovely. You got the power in you. Surround yourself with positive energy. Judges hitting people with provocative penalties. Need to make a change. Advocate to change the laws. Prove to people that it's not insane. When you stand behind a cause, I'm here to speak about the pain. Recover loud to normalize the disease that's been killing all my friends and my family. The time is now to let it all go and recover loud. The benefit is healthy people, family and friends that never have to overdose ever again, never have to plead out to a lesser offense. I'm proud to say that I recover loud. I never thought I could, but I'm so proud that I discovered how to live my life again, controlling my own destiny. I needed recovery, I still need it desperately. Addiction never defined my identity. I recovered loud, here to tell my own story.